Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and welcome to Modern and Modest with myself, Noshina Ghani. And Alhamdulillah, it's a beautiful Monday morning. Allah's rain is upon us, and as always, spring is amazing in Durban, and we're looking forward to having you soon in Durban. For all you people that are out of Durban, we're heading towards December, so we hope to see you soon. And with us today, we've got Razia Rangrage from Balance In, who is not just a life coach, but a body practitioner, as well as a radio presenter. And what else do you do, Razia?
I've been a guest on Al-Ansar a few times.
All right. So, Razia, just before we get into that, I just want to thank you so much for being on our show today. I think we have quite a bit that we're going to talk about, and our guests would enjoy listening in on that. But before we get into what it is that you actually do, maybe just tell our guests who you are, where are you from, and how did you actually get into everything that you do?
Okay, Alhamdulillah. So I'm Razia Rangrage. You have introduced me a bit. So I do motivational life coaching. I'm a body talk practitioner, cupping therapist. I've also started with cupping training. I'm an acupuncture practitioner as well. Also have a degree in BCom HR, Human Resource Management. So how I actually got into this is very interesting, because generally when we finish school, then we go and study and we get into academics, and the norm is that we would study and we would get a job, and that's how our career would take off, so to say. So yes, I didn't have much clarity. I always knew I wanted to become a psychologist, but I don't know why that time frame of 4 years I think just put me off. So I did travel and tourism after matric. Then I got into the hotel and hospitality industry, and then I was invited to, or shall I say, I was offered to do sales in another company. And as I was thinking that, you know what, here I am and trying to find a career, life was actually, what can I say, giving me the practical lessons, so to say, that I was actually preparing me for what I'm doing right now. So when I say we do cupping and things like that at my practice, that's dealing with the physical side. And during childhood, I had a very wonderful, exciting childhood, but I did enjoy a lot of physical incidences and pain. So the first is like my fingers. I got burnt when I was 2 years old. I pulled the iron down, though my mother kept it aside, and that came and ironically crinkled my fingers, right? And from that tender age, I always used things positively. So for me, it meant in preschool, I knew my right hand from the left hand, whereas other children would need to have a little red string so I could show off. And then when I was in class 1, grade 1 now, as they would say, I had barbed wire stuck into my toe, and it had to be ripped off. So the thing for me was that I could go to school with my brand new pair of tackies, whereas everybody else needed to wear their school shoes.
So you always took the positive out of every negative experience that you
always.
had.
And I was doing it innately. And then there were a lot of things that also happened, but then when I was in standard 9, so grade 11, we went on excursion. I ended up fracturing my spine. So I had a lovely fall from 5-6 meters down. I was going on the puffy slide, and there was no safety harnesses. And that's the time that I should have actually listened to my intuition, because whenever I said I have a feeling, I was 100% correct. So I had a feeling that I shouldn't go, and my friend said, go, 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 you're just being silly. So I remember climbing up that ladder, and it was hell of a high. And next thing I'm saying, my hands are wet. So another girl from that line said, don't go. And my friend said, just carry on. Don't make her scared. You just carry on. So I wiped my sweaty palms on hosepipe material, held it. I think not even a second. I stood like so much, and then I was on the ground. Impacted on my spine. I couldn't walk. Yeah, there was a whole new different journey and healing process altogether. But I think more than a test for me, I felt at the time it was more a test for my mum. And in that time, because she actually started a whole new business, she had a baby shop. We were originally from Maritzburg, and I had to just lay there and focus on my healing. But you know, it's one thing to say I'm healing, but how you heal is what makes the difference. So already at that age, I was prepping and convincing myself that by next week, this is what would be happening. And by a month's time, I would be walking, because I had 5 fractures. And alhamdulillah. So that's how the physical things came out, and I always turned it around. And then as I progressed into the later part of my years, the emotional tests and challenges started to come. So when people come to me and they talk to me, it's not just I can only imagine. Most of the time is I can relate. And it so happens that I find as I go through a certain challenge or test, I notice the next thing, a client comes to me with that exact same thing. So I eventually, as I was finding my way and my path, studying and getting jobs and things like that, and also having some emotional pain, I did meet Mohammed, which was my daughter's father, and he's now at home. Unfortunately, the marriage was not very good, but did that mean that he was a bad person or I was a bad person? No. When we turn around and we reflect, and we do cognitive reframing, I fully understand that there was a reason why he had to come into my life. It was like he came into my life to give me the higher grade tutorial and exam, to prepare me for all of this that's happening right now. And obviously whatever I'm going through right now is preparing me for what I need for the future. So we have to always be aware of that. Now, with Mohammed, it didn't work out. And last year, April, end of April, he met into an accident. And end of July, he actually passed away. So it has been a lot on our plate and a lot of emotional, trauma, not just for my daughter, but for myself to manage also, because he may have been my ex-husband, but we also became good friends. So I had lost a very good friend, and six and a half months later.
I just want to go back to you starting out in travel and tourism.
Yes.
But what I want to know is, when did you actually decide that you wanted to get into being a life coach? Or lead you into cupping and being a body talk practitioner?
Right.
Was this prior to your marriage, or was this after your marriage? How did that start out for you? Why would you have left travel and tourism to now get into the balancing?
Okay, so when I went into the hospitality industry, that was in Durban, and I got married in Rustenburg. So I actually studied cupping therapy in Malaysia. My brother is married in Malaysia, and we went up there. His wife was about to give birth, and my mum encouraged me to do that. She also encouraged me and introduced me to body talk. So I did the course while we were there, and while we were there, my mum actually ended up having an incident, and she fractured her arm. So I had to stay longer and take care of her, and I did the exact same thing that I had to do with myself, telling her, just focus, by next week it's going to be better. So I started with cupping, and that's what I took to Rustenburg, and nobody was doing it at the time there. It was amazing, and the clients that were coming to me, they kept opening up and telling me their personal stories, and I myself was in a very, in my personal space, I needed more help as well. So it was like something screaming out to me, you need to do more than just cupping. And slowly, as things evolved, I found body talk, and I ended up going for a body talk session, not with the intention of becoming a practitioner, but for my own sanity, because I needed the calm within me. And at that time, I didn't really know much about it until I did experience a session, and then slowly carried on with life, slowly carried on with the test and the challenges in the marriage. I did go to a psychologist, and then eventually I decided, as time progressed, that I would want to become a body talk practitioner. And after the divorce, I came back, and that was in 2016. I certified and qualified as a body talk practitioner, and that's when my transformation actually started to happen, because you go internally. Even though I felt I was very positive in the past, and that's how I managed to heal and turn things around, I realized that if I was attracting certain experiences or certain individuals into my life, and I attracted the marriage, it wasn't because there's anything bad in anybody. It was because I needed to learn certain lessons, and I needed to change internally. So that's what that whole transformation actually helped. Until now, we are all constantly work in progress. So till now, it's like, what are my blocks? What are my issues? If something happens, like you consciously want something, but there seems to be, some difficulty, that just shows that there's some misalignment with your belief system and what you consciously want. And hence, something needs to shift internally. And that's what I'm glad that before Mohammed even met into his accident, that's the beauty of the separation, was that calmness came. We were able to see each other. And he told me, you're helping people, why don't you help me? And I said, thanks to you, I am where I am. You helped me, so thank you, because we managed to become friends. and it helped me to just turn and change everything around instead of being this bitter, nasty person stepping into victim mode consciousness, which we see a lot. And that's where the transformation started to come out.
So Razia, did you qualify as a body talk practitioner and then a life coach?
Yes.
And what led you into wanting to become a life coach?
With body talk, the amazing thing is that we actually go on a much more subconscious level. So if I have to tell you, picture the iceberg. The tip of the iceberg is when we're talking on a conscious level. Everything that you'll tell me, I'm stressed, I'm depressed, I'm anxious, but where is that coming from? And that's the whole underberg, which makes up 80% of your mind. It's a subconscious and unconscious mind. So everything that you go through in life, from conception, not even from childhood, from conception, what your mom went through, how was your dad's emotions, everything gets formed and stored in that underberg, basically. And as you go through life, your experiences, your belief systems, your trauma, every single thing gets stored there. So and that's what we deal with in a body talk session. We go internally and we deal with things on a root level and not just the symptoms. Now, the thing is, I wanted to be able to give clients tools when they left me as well. Because yes, they experience the shifts, which is amazing because they're already feeling calmer. And most of the time they ask me, is that normal? Because they're so used to feeling that anxiety and the pressure and the mayhem. And absolutely normal. But I wanted to give them those tools that if they leave me, this is what you should be aware of. This is how you should be able to keep your sound mind, because that's necessary for good mental health. And that's when I got more into life coaching, just to bring about a little more structure with the sessions.
Well, we know October marks Mental Health Awareness Month, and hence on Modern and Modest, we look to ensure that our viewers have a healthy mindset. We'll take an ad break, and when back, we'll be chatting more to Razia about the importance of your mental health. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and welcome back to Modern and Modest. And with me today we have Razia Rangraj, who is a specialist in being a body talk practitioner and a life coach. So Razia, just before we had our ad break, we spoke about the importance of mental health, and being the month of October, we know that it is Mental Health Awareness Month. And we'd like to know from you, being a specialist in this, why is it so important to look out for your state of mind? Why is mental health so important?
Mental health is absolutely important because it affects our emotions, it affects our psychological and our social well-being, and it affects the way we act, think and speak, and in that way it actually creates our reality and our experiences, because reality is not reality, it is our perception of it. So if our mental health is not in good order, what does that mean? It means that there's just negativity playing out constantly, that we are focused on the negativity, and that's when depression and anxiety and all of those things step in. And yes, while it's okay because we are all on this, emotions are never constant, and as human beings we're never constantly happy. We're going to have the ups and downs, and that's okay because Allah created us with emotions. But the important thing is that we don't stay in that state of depression or sadness, and that we actually do go into hope. So mental health is absolutely important to pull us out of that, meaning that we need to have the tools and the sound mind to give us the resilience to endure whatever it is that we are facing right now. And how do we do that? Focus. Our focus actually needs to go back to Allah, and with that we can actually get through anything, because if we remain in that sad stage, which is, I said, a normal human emotion, then what's going to happen is that if we lose hope, then we're going to go into despair, and that's actually from shaitan. But if we're actually in that state and we have the hope and we know whatever we are going through, Allah is going to help us, we are going to see the miracle, and we will start to attract things to help us.
So would you mentioned as long as we have the tools. Now I know hope would be one of those tools where we need to be hopeful and we need to have more of a positive mindset.
Absolutely.
But tell us what other tools we need to gear this mindset, because many people tend to be stuck in a negative bubble. How do you get them out of that?
Absolutely, and again it comes back to focus. And if I can just go back to the story of Hazrat Musa alayhi salam, and I think that lesson is something that we should always bring into our lives, because Hazrat Musa alayhi salam and his army were faced with the Red Sea on one hand, and obviously Fir'aun, the worst tyrant, and his massive army behind them. And the people of Hazrat Musa alayhi salam at the time said, indeed we will be overtaken. But Hazrat Musa alayhi salam, although at the time he didn't know how he would be helped, his focus went straight to Allah. He said, no, indeed my Lord is with me and I will be guided. So even though it was such a terrible scenario, his focus just went straight to Allah, and Allah told him, strike your stick, and then we know the Red Sea opened. So in that, there's tools for us. And how can we take those tools? It means we will also be faced with a scenario or situations where we feel so trapped and like there's no way out, and we have been overcome. But that's where our focus actually needs to go back to Allah. And obviously hope is that, but then also taking positive actions as well. How can we be proactive in actually achieving what we want? And then the mindset is very important, because whatever we focus on goes. You know, they say where focus goes, energy flows. If we keep thinking about a problem, and that's going to be our focus, it's going to grow. It's a psychological state. It's a law of attraction state as well, and that's going to expand. So
Razia, just coming back to mental health, do you find many of us tend to neglect our mental health or have neglected it?
Absolutely. Because most of the time what I find is that we give our power away and we don't want to actually go internally and do the work internally. We think that we're depressed because somebody else isn't making us happy, and we think that we are miserable because somebody else, and that's how we give our power away. So mental health also means going internally, finding what makes you happy, bringing things in your thoughts. Start focusing on the joys, gratitude, things you're grateful for, instead of just focusing on what's not working out for you and the problems at hand. And when we start doing the introspection, then we can make our mind stronger, because now we're bringing in and drawing in all the positive things in life. So the inner work is important, and that's where personal power comes in, and that's how we can create our own reality, because whatever you think of, it creates an emotion. And emotion is energy in motion, and the moment there's an emotion, it's a frequency given out, and we're going to attract more of those into our space, because everything
pretty
is
much your
energy.
positive and negative energy.
Absolutely.
So Razia, with people that have neglected their mental health, and you seeing so many patients coming into your practice, there has obviously been a change where some of us are aware that we need to do something about the state of mind.
Absolutely.
So what type of patients do you see? And maybe you can, many of us tend to feel that you're struggling on your own. And if you listen to people, most people are perhaps having the same issues and you're not alone in it. Are those the type of patients that come to you? Do you find there's a lot of similarity with what people tend to go through?
Yes, actually attract people on a very, with different kind of scenarios or experiences. Like it ranges from children, 12-year-olds, and then people with marital problems, and then people with just depression, and then people with just where things are just not working out for them. And yes, but the common thread is that everybody thinks that things are not working out for them. And the sad thing I think with social media is that people see what's going on, and a lot of them get depressed from what they're seeing out there. But everybody has their journey, and everybody has something that they're dealing with, and that's the design of life.
Why do you think people tend to become more depressed on social media? Why do you think people experience that?
Because they're looking at what somebody else may have that they don't have. So instead of focusing on what they have and focusing on gratitude, they're focusing on lack, what they don't have. And the more you step and focus on lack is basically you're going to attract more things that is going to actually come and confirm that. So that's where it stems from. It's your focus is going outside. They have that and I don't have it.
But don't you think when it comes to social media, it's important for people to take the positive rather than view it in a negative? Maybe let that be a means of motivating you to being better, or get you to reach those goals that you perhaps want to get to, as opposed to viewing it in a negative light and allowing that to take over your entire life, or lead you to depression. So what tips could you give our viewers? Because every individual is on social media, and I'm sure many people are going through this type of depression and being not, discontent with what they have. How can we view this in a positive light? Because social media is never going to go away. So what would you say? What can viewers do then?
As you said, look at it. So again, it comes to focus. How are you looking at it, and how are you taking those things in? And if it's affecting you and it's triggering you whereby you feel depressed, then that means that there's something inside of you that needs to shift. There's something inside of you that you need to work on. Is it your self-esteem? Or do you feel that you are lacking in a certain way? So go inside the inner work that needs to be done. And then, as you said, use it in a positive way, because there's a lot of positive things on social media that we can draw on. So it's what you want to choose. Like life, social media and life is the same. It's a buffet. You take what you want. So if you are just, your lenses are focused on negative things, you're going to attract that, and it's going to affect you negatively, because that's what's playing here. But if it's how can I grow and how can I become better, then you're going to be focusing on those as you're scrolling.
Okay. So we chatted about we need to look at what's going on inside of us. There has to be some issue. Would you say that this is where this individual needs to now look for a life coach, maybe seek help from a life coach? Because we chatted about body talk, speaking about the superficial issue, and I think life coach would be what's going on inside. So how would a life coach help this individual that probably has something going on that's inside, perhaps very deep-seated?
Absolutely. Most of the time it's very deep-seated. As I said, on a conscious level we don't understand, or we would think that something small, we pushed it away. We didn't actually push it away, but we suppressed it. Or we can push it so bad that it can actually become a regressed memory. So body talk, we literally shift things from a root level, and the life coaching part comes in where we talk and we actually identify what is the pattern. So why do you keep attracting this? And when that happens, that also gives them the tools to start noticing the patterns as they live, and also for them to become very aware of the emotions. I'm feeling this way, to let them know it's okay if you're feeling an emotion. Identify it, breathe through it, release it. Most of the time people think I'm not supposed to be feeling sad or negative, and they just want to push it away and shove it under the carpet. But that actually is going to make it manifest even more, and one day it's going to explode. So the life coaching comes in to help them to deal with it in a healthy way, to address what's coming up. Not necessarily it's bad, but it means that you need to grow in a certain way, and how to help them with that. And as they progress in life, it's like the penny starts to drop. They realize, that is why I've been doing that all my life, because of that incident or that belief system, and it stems from there. And it's so beautiful when you see them stepping into that self-awareness.
I'd like for us to take an ad break, but just before we do that, you mentioned you see children coming through to you.
Yes.
And I think with most of us, these issues have actually occurred when we were probably very young, and we've decided to put it under the rug and not deal with it. And as you grow older, it obviously gets worse and it changes the person you are. So I'd like you to discuss that more in depth, that why is it so important maybe for our children to seek help from a life coach whilst they're still kids, rather than waiting until they're adults. We'll break for an ad, and when back we'll be chatting more to Razia Rangraj. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and welcome back to Modern and Modest. And we're speaking to Razia Rangraj, who's a body talk practitioner and a life coach. So Razia, just before our ad break, we chatted about the importance of going to a body talk practitioner and a life coach. But many of these issues tend to start out, or it stems from childhood, and we tend to ignore it, or we don't recognize that in our children.
Yes.
But what advice could you give our viewers, and when do you think it would be ideal for you to actually think about taking your child to a life coach? When do you think we should start looking at treatment options?
You mentioned something very important, that things actually start from childhood and we brush it under the carpet. Yes, and the reason we do that is because most of the time we don't know how. We don't know how to deal with things. And when you notice, okay, maybe the environment is not a very pleasant one and you can see your child is acting up, don't just ignore it, take them for the help. And with the life coaching and body talk, what we do is we actually help to iron things out at an earlier stage, instead of the child progressing and growing up with all of that into the adult stage, where they will attract people to come and basically validate all the belief systems that they've accumulated along the way. So that is why it is so important. And I love working with children. They are so perceptive to energy. It's amazing. And I had a 12-year-old boy that came in and he told me straight, what can you do for me? With no disrespect to any other professionals. He says, I've been to psychologists, but what can you do? And obviously I had to become his friend. And while doing the body talk with him, he says, what are you doing? Because already I feel calm, like I can't get angry. And he was using the anger, obviously, to try and boost his sense of self-esteem. And the next time he came, there was a difference in him. There was this calmness in him. So it helps them to actually unpack whatever they are going through in life. And the sad thing is, if we look at our current state, divorces are going crazy. If you look at the divorce rate, and especially when kids are involved, you must know they're actually accumulating so much by observing what happened in the marriage, by observing what's happening around them, the tug of war between parents, if they are not handling it in a healthy way. Children are already going through so much. And if we are not there to give them that healthy environment or the love that they need, naturally they're going to be affected. And we want to help them to iron these out and help them so that they can progress into best adults possible. So this will help to give them the tools.
So what if that environment or home isn't necessarily going through a separation?
Right.
What are the symptoms that we could, or the behavioral characteristics that we need to look out for in our kids to understand that, okay, my child needs help or my child needs to go to a body talk practitioner? What are we actually looking for?
Okay, so probably if they're just acting out for no reason, they're hyper, bedwetting, getting angry, aggressive. These are things that we need to take pay cognitive attention to, because they're not just acting out. Most of the time, if you ask the child, why are you behaving like that? They have no answer for you. They don't know. They're just reacting from something much deeper. And it could be anything that could have triggered it. So we want to actually help them to remove that, because as I said, we work on a root level. So when we get that out of the way, it will help them to even function much more healthier, and they'll be calmer as well. And we also help the body to, like in body talk, to actually heal naturally. So maybe if there's an imbalance somewhere in the organ or the brain or anything, we can help to correct that at a much earlier stage.
Okay. So Razia, we know that you've also gotten into cupping. You mentioned having that course done in Malaysia. Tell us more about cupping. What are the benefits of cupping? How often should one have cupping?
Cupping is amazing, honestly. So it's my baby, so to say. It's what I started off with. Cupping, I do very many different therapies like massage cupping, dry cupping, wet cupping. Wet cupping, we know, is a sunnah. And cupping is amazing because it works on a much deeper level. It works up to 10 centimeters deep. And cupping helps you on a physical level. So when we have physical pain and dis-ease, muscle spasms, back aches, even endometriosis, eczema, so many things, even Bell's palsy. I had a 21-year-old that got cured because of cupping, and we nipped it in the bud, so alhamdulillah. That was, I think, my favorite story. And cupping helps you on a physical, emotional, mental, spiritual level as well. And if we read the hadiths, there was the night of Miraj when Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam went up, and they say not a single group of angels, like every single group of angels that he passed, told him, order your ummah with cupping. So there's a lot of magic in it. And if you believe really and you do it with that intention, you will experience the magic. And then there are the sunnah days that it's best to do the cupping on 17th, 19th and 21st of the Islamic month. And basically how that works is the position of the moon and the way our blood flow is at the time. So you get the best results. And Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam says it's a cure for all illnesses, inshallah. So you know when they talk about the full moon and people go a bit loopy, it's not just a myth. It really happens.
So take us back to the difference. You mentioned that there's dry cupping. We know what the wet cupping is about. But what is the difference, and is the end benefit still the same?
So the difference with dry cupping is we're basically bringing up the negative pressure, the suction is bringing the blood flow to come up to the organ, so that helps with getting the flow happening around the organ. Circulation and muscle spasms and things like that. But the effects are not long-term like wet cupping. Wet cupping is actually where you get the best detox. It's like, I'll actually use the analogy of actually emptying the bin. You're not just wiping it, you're actually literally taking it out. So with wet cupping, it's going to remove all the toxins, the bad blood, the acidity, the dampness. Sometimes I notice that if there's a very deeper problem in the area, the cups, the blood may bubble up, and that's indicating that there's a deeper problem in that area. So it's excellent. And that's the difference. So wet cupping will give you the longer relief because you're actually detoxing and you're taking out what the body no longer needs. And it promotes circulation as well.
How often, we chatted about that, but how many sessions of cupping would an individual need to start feeling the difference?
Cupping once a month is good if you have a problem. Otherwise, once in 3 months, once in 6 months if you just want to detox. I often tell my clients that you will feel the difference because everybody's body is different. Unlike with Body Talk, I can actually ask your body next session because it will know what it wants to address. Cupping, I tell it to my clients, and each and everyone come back and say, I need my cupping now, because you feel the heaviness. When you do wet cupping, you feel more energized, less lethargic, because it actually opens the meridians, which are your energy channels as well.
Okay. We know that you also offer acupuncture. So who would you use acupuncture on? I know you mentioned cupping even for muscular spasms, but would you then use acupuncture for the same type of patient coming to you?
Okay, so what I do is the Detox acupuncture, and I'm not a certified. So basically that's on the auricular of the ear. So we work with the 5 meridian points on the ear, which is excellent for detoxing as well, addictions, smoking, drug addiction, also for ADHD kids, and with kids we also bring in magnets. And however, even though they say it's for detoxing, it actually works on the continuum flow of the organ system. So like all our organs are linked, and the way the chi flow happens, there's a back and forth movement. So like our heart and the small intestine is linked, and that deals with fright and joy. Linked to the stomach and the spleen, which controls the emotion of worry. And then it goes to the bladder and the kidney, which is all about fear. Linked to the large intestine and the lungs, that's about grief. And then the liver and the gallbladder comes in, and that's anger. So if any one of the organs or organ is toxic, it's going to cause a ripple effect on the entire organ system naturally. So by detoxing that, it's going to help the flow, the chi flow, to actually be maximized. So by working on these points, it helps on so many different levels as well. Like I did the Detox acupuncture. The one common thing that everybody, all my clients experience, is amazing sleep. Sleep, right? Obviously because it brings in the calmness.
So with you being a Body Talk practitioner, and people come to you when they have issues or their mental state of mind isn't what it should be, do you tend to offer combined therapies to your patients?
Yes. That's the beauty of Body Talk. I do a lot of different modalities like Afia healing, which I never mentioned, quantum touch, chi therapy healing, and sound healing as well. So as the body calls on, because each session will be very different. What your body may need today, it may not need the next time. It may need some other modality. And according to that, I bring it in. I do combine sessions. Some clients prefer cupping and the Detox together. They feel that they have the best detox ever. Sometimes they would do the Body Talk with the Detox as well. So yes, I do combined sessions.
And how many sessions would an individual need? Like if you wanted to do combined sessions, do you reach a point where we're going to do a few combined sessions and then eventually you would just do either Body Talk or acupuncture?
So everybody is different and their scenarios or their experience or the challenges are different. So that's when we ask the body. And that's the beauty, again, as I say, of body talk, is that we go and we ask the body. Because even if you come in with a knee problem and somebody else comes with the same story, the underbird that you have that's kicking out that problem is different. So how we have to sort it out and iron it out and uncover it or let it heal will be very different. So according to that, we would create your next session and what your body needs.
Okay. Razia, we're going to take an ad break, and when back we'll be chatting more about how acupuncture and combined therapy could actually help an individual. So after the ad break, we'll be chatting more to Razia Rangraj. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome back to Modern and Modest, and October marks Mental Health Awareness Month, and with me today we have Razia Rangraj, a body practitioner as well as a life coach. So Razia, we've covered a fair amount with your combined therapies on body talk and the importance of body talk. But I'm sure our viewers, there are many viewers out there, and we all can agree that it takes a lot for an individual to actually go out and speak to a stranger. I mean, they don't know this individual, and there's a lot of apprehension in taking that first step to start speaking about yourself or your emotions. What advice could you share with our viewers? How do we overcome this?
Absolutely, that's so important to be able to speak out, and most of the time the fear comes from because we feel ashamed, like I have a problem, you know, and I'm battling to deal with something because I think there's a lot of pressure on needing to be perfect. Nothing is perfect, and Allah says in the Quran that He will challenge us and He will test us, so that's okay. So if you are struggling and you are battling, go out and get the help. Seek the help. If you feel that your mental and emotional state is being jeopardized, seek the help. There is help out there. Another important thing is Allah says, I will not change the condition of a person until they change what is in themselves. And I think maybe at one stage I was also in that space where I went through a lot of things, you know, emotionally, and I just brushed it off and I said, I'm fine, I'm positive, I can deal with this, let's move on. However, it's not so simple. If you don't see what are the lessons I'm meant to have learned from that experience, life is very generous. It's going to come back to you again. The pattern is going to play out again. So until you stop, you reflect, you introspect, and you say, what am I supposed to learn from this, and how am I supposed to grow? What needs to change inside of me so in future I don't attract this again and my life can actually improve? So that's when that pattern will stop. It's very important to have the ability to say, I need help, because that's when we can do the changing.
Okay, so Razia, you mentioned that it is important for an individual to seek for help, and firstly accepting that I need help, and then going and asking for help. But what happens to those individuals that can't necessarily afford going and see a body talk practitioner or a psychologist? What can that individual do for themselves?
That's a very good question. It's very important for us to identify that we actually do have the tools sometimes, and to help to calm those in that stage who can't go out and reach the external assistance is to breathe. Breathing is absolutely amazing. Breath work is so profound, because when we take deep breaths, what actually happens is that the brain starts to scan the entire body, and it helps to correct things down, you know, along the frequencies. So breathing is important, but then how do we breathe? You know, when we are facing anxiety, most of the time they're shallow because the breath is actually just going to here. It's not going down to the abdomen. So it's very important that we breathe right to the abdomen. And as we breathe out, make the conscious intention that I am clearing my mind. Also, it's very important to, you know, follow the sunnah of Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. Whenever Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam faced a problem, he would go and read two nafil. So Salat al-Hajat is absolutely profound. I myself also do this because we actually don't have control over anything. Yes. And that's when most of the anxiety actually comes in. When we feel we have control and we need to control a situation, but actually we don't have control over anything.
And I guess things are generally beyond your control.
Absolutely, always. Because even if we work, if you think about it, that money that's coming to us, it's not by our own work, it's the mercy of Allah. Yes. It's the effort that we made. So like that, make the effort to calm the mind, read Salat al-Hajat, and just trust. Visualize literally taking your, whatever is causing your anxiety, hand it over to Allah. Tell Allah, Ya Allah, I cannot handle this. You help me. So if you are feeling afraid to speak to somebody, speak to Allah. He's always near.
Okay. And what other tips can you share with our viewers? I mean, we spoke now about the breathing, and yes, seek help from Allah. But is there anything else that we could do, maybe on a daily basis? You know, why wait until you've reached the dead end now and you don't know what to do with yourself? How can we better our emotions on a daily basis?
Very beautiful is to always focus on gratitude. وَلَا إِن شَكَرْتُمْ لَأَزِيدَنَّكُمْ. The more grateful you are to Allah, the more He will increase you in favors. So as you go about the day, shift the mindset from focusing on, I don't have this and I need to do that and that isn't working out and what, you know, it really goes on autoplay in our
focus
mind.
on positive. Yeah.
Focus on the positive things, because then you start training your mind on that. And when you bring those things in, life becomes better, because that's what you're observing, that's what you're attracting, that's what you're noticing, that's what will play out, and that becomes basically expanded. So start focusing on that, be grateful. Number 2, pay attention to your thoughts. What's constantly coming in your mind? And you have to make a very conscious effort, if it's negative, to say stop, you know, and put something positive in. Initially, it takes like a lot of conscious effort to do that, because think about it, most of the time it's just an autoplay. We don't even know what we're thinking. And human nature is designed to be negative. So we have to make conscious effort to reprogram that to focus on positive things. And the third thing I would say is, pay attention to your self-talk. Pay attention to the words that you use, because words are manifestation of your thoughts. And as I said, your thoughts, whatever you think, it has an influence on your emotion naturally. Because if I tell you, you got a message now and you want 10,000 rand, yeah, you got a smile on your face. But if I tell you, think about the people in Syria and what is happening all over the world, automatically just that thought brings in that emotion of sadness. So pay attention to that, and then your words. Don't just say, I'm not going to be negative anymore, because negative is still there, and that's what you are planting in the subconscious mind, and hence the subconscious mind is your servant. It's what goes out and attracts things to whatever you feed it. So we don't get what we want, we get what we are.
So it takes us back to when you mentioned earlier, take that pain and turn it into power. So take anything painful and turn it into a more positive energy, very much the same.
Absolutely, because there's khair in everything. What may look bad, there's actually goodness in there. And it's our duty to actually look at that. What is the goodness in there?
Okay. Most of us tend to go to work on a daily basis, or we're not necessarily living on our own, and you tend to be surrounded by different types of personalities, different types of environments. So what happens if that environment that you are in ends up being a toxic environment? What message or tips can you give our viewers to sort of keep their sanity and be positive in a negative, toxic environment?
We find that happening very often here. And one thing is, we have to be very aware. As we mentioned, we cannot control anything, nor can we change anybody. But what we can change and what we do have power in changing is ourselves. And that's where our thoughts and our belief systems and what we are worthy of. So when people are acting out in a toxic way, do we have to go and behave on that same level as them? Do we have to go and feed off them, give our power away? No. Actually, we've got to take our power back, and we've got to step back and be the observer. If they are acting out and behaving in a way that really isn't good, we got to, and if we are being triggered then obviously it's our issue and we've got to deal with that. But we have to be the observer to know how much of this is actually mine and how much is theirs. Because most of the time they're acting out because they've got things in their underbag that they've got to sort out and they've got to address. So you got to just remain calm and go internally and see, what is my issues, what are my issues, what aren't, and what do I need to change, and how can I empower myself. So always remain in your integrity. That's where the thoughts come in, instead of cursing the person and going on how, you know, how nasty they are.
So in a nutshell, you've got to maintain a very calm response, or try and train your mind to be a more of a calmer individual, as opposed to being an aggressive, angry individual.
Yes, and the key is you want to be in a space of where you can react instead, or shall I say, sorry, respond instead of react. And most of the time we react when there's a trigger in us, and that's where you got to go inside and do the inner work. So be in a space of where you can actually sit back and respond, and that's when you know it's not my issue, it's yours, and you detach.
I think that's a very important point, especially for our youth today. I mean, they're out at schools or perhaps going out on campus, and you find that there are so many young individuals that tend to have so much of anger in them. And it's important to train our kids to basically focus on trying to maintain a healthy mind in being calm and, like you said, respond as opposed to react.
Absolutely.
So, Razia, if any one of us need to get in touch with you, be it for Body Talk or life coach sessions, how would one get in touch with you?
They can contact me on 082-8600-112. They can phone me, and also I'm available on WhatsApp as well. I'm also based at the Durban Runner Medical Center. That's on 351 Windermere Road in Morningside here. I'm also available on social media, and I go on Instagram under balance_in and Facebook, and I've also recently started a YouTube channel where I do post motivational videos, very short videos where I give you tips and advise how to handle things, and I try to do them weekly, so you can watch those on my social media as well.
Okay, so Razia, just before we wrap up, what would be your parting words to our viewers? What message would you like to share with our viewers today?
Alhamdulillah, I think with the events and recent events in life where we've had deaths, very closely in my family with Husna's dad and then my dad 6.5 months later, the lesson that I drew and I'd like to share is that this world is very temporary. As we know, dunya means lowest level, so everything is temporary. What you're going through right now, don't be fixated and don't be overcome by it. Let your focus be on Allah, let your tawakkul come in. Know that whatever you are going, there's a greater power there, and everything that you're going through is just temporary. So try and handle it in the best possible way and with the most hopeful and inspirational way that you can.
Okay, I'm so glad that you stressed on it just being temporary, and I think many of us need to understand that, so we know it's not the end of the world and it's just going to be for a short space of time, and eventually you would overcome your struggles.
Absolutely.
Well, I'd like to thank you for being on our show. It was indeed such a pleasure, and you've shared so much of insight on why your mental health is of utmost importance. And to our viewers, I'm sure you've learned so much from Razia Rangraj, and I'm hoping that you can improve your mental health and not to be apprehensive about reaching out and seeking for help. Well, shukran for watching and joining in today. Until next week, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.